During the WCW All-Nighter video, I mentioned how the company's home video releases were limited when it came to older events in their tape library. However, most of the major pay-per-views and various compilations, or even the Superstar series, continued to be released until late 2000. With that year's Fall Brawl being the final WCW home video distributed by Time Warner. Though the last WCW VHS release ever was a one-off tape exclusive to readers of the company's magazine, covering the best matches of the 90s. During this period, DVD releases of films or TV shows for home video were starting to become the norm, and as expected, two major wrestling companies would start to put their own shows or compilations onto this new format. The WWF first released WrestleMania 15 and Stone Cold Hell Yeah in 1999, as ECW would follow with Extreme Revolution and Path of Destruction the year after. As for WCW, they didn't get any from Warner Home Video. Even when the company was purchased, most would believe that there wasn't an official DVD release from or solely focused on the company until WWE put out the Rise and Fall of WCW in 2009. Unless you were in Japan. Towards the end of WCW's existence, different distributors from Turner and WB released a DVD that was exclusive to the country, and up until a few months ago, I was able to find an upload of the content in its entirety. The DVD covers 4 months of the Millionaires Club vs. New Blood storyline from April to August of 2000, with a mix of promos, segments, and matches from different Nitros and Thunders, and even a few pay-per-views of the time period. This also has the highest quality footage that keeps the original audio and entrance themes missing in the Peacock and network versions. So you'll get a pretty authentic WCW 2000 experience, for better or worse. With all that said, let's take a closer look at the only official DVD release from World Championship Wrestling. The Millionaires Club vs. New Blood, with the subtitle WCW's Powerful Outbreak of War, released on November 29, 2000, at a price tag of 4,800 yen, or a little over $30 US. It was distributed by Toshiba EMI Limited, one of Japan's most popular music labels at the time, that was a subsidiary of both Toshiba Musical Industries and Capital EMI, before being dissolved into Universal Music Japan in 2013. There's also a mention in the credits for Step Video, or Step Visual Corporation, but I wasn't able to find any info about the company. It starts with the formation of the New World Order in 1996, showing the chaos and unpredictable moments from WCW's most dominant faction during the Monday Night Wars. We then go to the December 20th, 1999 episode of Nitro, as Bret Hart defends the WCW title against Goldberg in a Starrcade rematch. With the referee knocked out, the Hitman locks in the figure 4 on Bill, as Hall and Nash come down to the ring and attack Goldberg with bats. Nash hands his bat to Bret as they continue the assault, before it cuts to Jeff Jarrett joining the trio after Roddy Piper gets knocked out trying to save Goldberg. Double J holds a few spray cans in his arms, using one to write some familiar letters onto Bill and Piper's unconscious bodies before Nash tells the Baltimore crowd,
"The band is back together!"
And thus NWO 2000 is born. We then go to a brief montage of clips with the newest incarnation of the New World Order, as the logo is crossed out before the Millionaires Club vs. New Blood logo fades in. The thunder after the NWO 2000's arrival features Goldberg running down and spearing Jarrett, then chasing Bret Hart to the back, but the World Heavyweight Champion is able to get into a car and drive off before Bill can get his hands on him. A nearby limo that Mike Tenay claimed belonged to the powers that be gets its driver's window shattered before the driver himself is dragged out. Goldberg uses his right arm to smash each of the windows as Thunder goes off the air, which causes the arm to bleed profusely as we see some of it splatter on the hood of the limousine. Bill originally had a piece of metal pipe on his hands covered in black tape to help make the window shattering much easier, but he ended up dropping the pipe before hitting the third window. This resulted in a shard of the glass slicing an artery and started the aforementioned bleeding just as the show faded to black. After being rushed to the hospital, Goldberg was informed that the injury nearly led to his forearm possibly being amputated and would keep him out of action for the early months of 2000. This also led to the original plans of him fighting Bret Hart in the NWO 2000 to be thrown out the window. Pun not intended. We jump ahead to the April 10th, 2000 Nitro, dubbed The Night the World Changed. As the WCW roster fills the ring and outside, instructed in the format to be dressed to the nines instead of their gimmicks, they await the on-screen arrival of Vince Russo. Russo explains that he left the WWF and jumped to the competition to beat Vince McMahon at his own game, before going into detail as to why he stepped down as the company's head writer just a few months into the job.
And then one day, I'm told that there's going to be a change in direction. A change that I knew sucked. But you know what? That's all over now. It's done. And Vince Russo is back in charge again. It is over. The old boys management is over. The inflated egos in the back, afraid to lose their spot, it is over. It is the dawning of a new day. It is your opportunity. Seize that opportunity.
Are you done yet?
The Denver crowd witnesses the return of Eric Bischoff to Monday Nitro for the first time since being sent home from his day-to-day running of WCW the previous September. We then go to highlights of the first Russo-Bischoff Nitro, with all the champions getting stripped of their titles, and a 4-man tournament to decide Jeff Jarrett's opponent at Spring Stampede. We also see the start of the Kidman vs. Hogan feud, as Billy calls out the Hulkster and starts a brawl between the two, before Eric comes out to attack the former NWO leader with a chair. Kurt Hennig takes on the Chosen One, with a stipulation that if Kurt could beat Jarrett, he would get the world title match at the pay-per-view instead, but thanks to Shawn Stasiak, Jarrett keeps his spot at Spring Stampede intact. The franchise Shane Douglas emerges to attack Ric Flair in the ring, before the soundbite of Russo calling out Flair from earlier plays over Vic Venom attacking the Nature Boy with a bat. Kevin Nash's in-ring promo gets interrupted with a surprise appearance of then ECW World Champion Mike Awesome, laying out Big Sexy with one of his crutches, while in the parking lot, a white Hummer runs into a limo being driven by Hogan, with Eazy-E revealed as the culprit. We then go to DDP versus the Stinger in the tournament finals, with Vampiro hitting the nail in the coffin on Sting and allowing Dallas Page to get the win. Jeff Jarrett then runs into the ring to hit the guitar over DDP's head, but ends up nailing Kimberly with the shot instead, as the New Bloods stand tall in the ring with Russo and Bischoff looking on from the stage. Bret Hart appears behind them just as it transitions to the main event of the final Spring Stampede event. Diamond Dallas Page faces Jeff Jarrett to crown a new WCW World Champion, as Dallas takes the early advantage over the former country singer in the early going, but only gets a 2 count after a rebound DDT. After the two brawl at ringside and use the ring post multiple times, Bischoff then gets onto the apron and grabs Charles Robinson, as Kimberly comes into the ring with guitar in hand to hit it over her husband. With a stroke and a 3 count, Jarrett wins the big gold belt for the first time, as Kimberly hugs Eric afterwards, confirming her allegiance to the New Blood. The celebration begins the following night on Nitro, as red confetti and balloons fall from the ceiling, while the most WCW version of New York, New York plays to the arena speakers. The New Blood arrive with the company's gold in their possession.
Meanwhile,
Hogan walks backstage to the white Hummer that's been parked, before coming back from the break, as Hogan brawls with Kidman, ending with Hollywood dumping the filthy animal into a nearby dumpster, before going after the future Raw general manager. After failing to start the Hummer up, Eric runs away, leaving Hogan to start the car and drive it right into the dumpster that has Billy inside.
He's gonna take it out for a test drive.
There's Kidman trying to get out of the dumpster.
He wouldn't.
Oh my God! Kidman's in that dumpster!
My God, Hogan's lost it.
Oh no!
Billy Kidman could be dead. Come on, Hulk, stop it.
Hulk eventually finds Eric in the locker room and chases him down to the ring, backing him up into a corner before Russo and Bret Hart arrive, as the Hitman teases hitting Hogan or Bischoff with a chair, but the show cuts off just as we start to see Bret swinging. The answer would be revealed 1 week later, as Bret ended up attacking Hogan before leaving the ring.
Buenos nachos.
Corey, I didn't know you spoke Spanish. Are you fluent?
No. I feel fine.
We transition to a trailer for the cinematic something that is Ready to Rumble, before cutting to the film's star David Arquette in the front row. Double J then cuts a promo about facing DDP in the triple tier cage from the film at Slamboree, before we go to a regular cage match between the two later in the night. Mike Awesome arrives to rip the door off its hinges and stop Page from winning, but Chris Kanyon follows behind to even the playing field, and help his friend win the WCW World title as David Arquette joins in on the post-match celebration. The infamous episode of Thunder a few days later starts with Jarrett making a challenge for revenge of the New Blood, as DDP and Arquette face Double J and Bischoff, with the winner becoming the WCW champion. We see David Arquette spearing Eric to win the title before cutting to a pre-tape promo on Nitro, where Arquette explains to Courtney Cox that he'll show up to defend the title, before going after Kurt Russell when Kurt laughed at David for taking it so seriously. The triple tier cage lowers for the main event of Slamboree, with Page and Jarrett eventually finding themselves brawling on the second cage. Arquette climbs to the top cage where DDP hands him a guitar, and as both challengers get to the top of the structure, Arquette nails Dallas with the guitar before Jarrett hugs him and grabs the title to become the world champion again. Just as Mike Awesome looks to send Page crashing to the floor, Kanyon ends up taking the bullet for DDP and gets thrown off the third cage to a padded portion of the entrance ramp. Nitro the week after featured Ric Flair challenging the future founder of TNA for the 10 pounds of gold, as Russo and David Flair watched on from commentary. Flair surprises the New Blood with a small package to beat the Chosen One and win his 15th world title. But after getting attacked by the New Blood on Thunder, Nate falls trying to leave the ring. Later claimed to be equilibrium issues, it would allow Russo to strip him of the belt and award it back to Jarrett. Kevin Nash would end up stealing the big gold belt on the following Nitro, with him and Jeff facing off in a no-holds-barred match as Vince served the role of guest referee. When Nash takes Russo to the ramp to hit a jackknife powerbomb,
And Nash is ready. Oh man!
Oh my God! The red down on Kevin Nash.
only in 2000 WCW is it possible to f*** up the Bloodbath spot twice with Kevin Nash of all people as the target to aim for. Anyhow, Jarrett knocks Diesel out with the guitar to win, in the 8th title change under the Bischoff-Russo regime. Big Papa Pump would join opposing sides with Nash as the two challenged Jeff Jarrett for the title before we see Nash and Jarrett face off again on Thunder. Scott Steiner would knock out the New Blood security on the ramp and allow referee Mickey J to make the 3 count for Big Sexy's pinfall to win the belt again. Nash calls Flair to the ring the following Monday to give him the belt back that was never lost in the ring, with this being Rick's 16th world title. With Jarrett taking exception to this decision, we get another Double J Nature Boy main event, with Jarrett once again taking the title back. And I'm gonna be honest here, if I'm starting to get frustrated just from watching the highlights of these shows, I couldn't imagine the migraines that the viewers must have gotten from watching them in their entirety week to week. As we're just under halfway through this DVD, I can't imagine there being anything enjoyable to watch, even if it was just for a brief moment to sit past all this god-awful booking. Perhaps I spoke too soon. And yes, they do cut to some more of these brief montages with WCW's other female stars throughout the DVD. David Flair stabs his father in the back to join Russo and the New Blood, with Nate wanting to get his hands on Vince after the former US champion put his younger brother Reed in the figure 4. Rick finally gets his hands on Vinny Roo inside the cage on the June 5th Nitro, as Flair is able to catch him despite many attempted escapes to deliver a well-deserved beatdown. But as the figure 4 gets applied in the middle of the ring,
I think David Flair pulling his arm is going to add pressure to the figure 4.
The red of the New Blood drenches the Nature Boy Ric Flair.
David then locks the move in onto his own father, letting Russo pin the legend in the Sea of Red. Flair demands a rematch a week later where the loser retires, but it turns into a tag match with David and Vince against Rick and Reed, as both Russo and the older son get chopped and knocked down. The Flair family, including his daughter Ashley, try to stop the beating, only to get held back by New Blood security, as Megan throws in the towel to save her dad. David and Russo add insult to injury by shaving Rick's classic blonde hair and even cutting some of Reed's hair as well. We focus back on Sting and Vampiro's heated rivalry before going to the Human Torch match between them at the Great American Bash. After missing the splash in the corner, the Stinger gets doused with lighter fluid by Vampiro before both men head up the ramp. Vampiro climbs up to the torch on top of the Turnertron, as Sting soon follows, before the arena lights start flickering, allowing Sting's stunt double to get lit on fire and fall through the platform off the side of the stage. WCW's Hardcore Champion Terry Funk makes his entrance to defend the belt against Eric Bischoff, as we see a recap of Funk's previous title defenses up to that point. Ernest Miller helps Eazy-E at the opening bell, but it does very little before Funk takes control. Russo sends the Mamalukes out to stop Terry, as they drag Bischoff onto Funk to hand the former senior vice president of the company his first and only WCW title. The Great Muta returns to WCW in July, spitting mist in the eyes of Tank Abbott and helping the Young Dragons grab 3 Count's gold record. Muta faces Vampiro the following week on Nitro, with Tony mentioning on commentary that Vampiro wanted to become a wrestler because of the Great Muta. With the former Kiss Demon and the ICP watching at ringside, Muta hits the moonsault to defeat Vampiro. The two prepare to face off again, with the Cat serving as guest referee. But it instead becomes a brawl, as Ernest is able to fight off Vampiro, Shaggy, and Violent J but Muta knocks down WCW's commissioner and joins in on attacking Chronic backstage to form the Dark Carnival. The Men in Pain challenge them for the tag team titles and New Blood Rising. As referee Mickey J gets sprayed with the mist, the Harris twins run in to knock down the Bryans and assist Muta and Vampiro in bringing the gold to the carnival.
You know, 8 weeks ago, Bischoff and Russo came out and said that they were going to systematically eliminate the Millionaires. And if you look at it, Luger's got a destroyed face, Diamond Dallas Page is personal, and his professional life is being controlled by Eric Bischoff. Hulk's got a retirement match at the Great American Bash, and Pyro wanting to set Sting on fire in 13 days. And then you got moi, Kevin Nash.
We go back to Kevin Nash being forced by Russo to face the New Blood in a gauntlet match with his world title shot on the line. The former Diesel is able to take some of them out, even getting a few 3 counts without actually pinning anybody, but is quickly outnumbered when they all enter the ring. Goldberg then runs down to help even the odds and send the New Blood packing. During the Great American Bash's main event for the world title, the Filthy Animals briefly stop Kevin from getting the win and attack him at ringside. The odds are further stacked against Nash when Ernest Miller refuses to count the pinfall and gets powerbombed for his troubles. Rick Steiner runs down to join the Animals in beating down Big Sexy before Goldberg walks down to the ring and...
Get up! Get up! Holy
Surprise!
Jesus! Holy Jesus! Here, Kevin Nash!
Surprise, everybody!
In one of the most baffling decisions in WCW history, Goldberg helps Jarrett retain the world title and joins the New Blood. So now we get to arguably the most memorable match from the New Blood storyline, for all the wrong reasons, as Hollywood Hogan dons his classic NWO attire to face Jarrett for the title at Bash at the Beach. I think we've all seen this replayed and talked about enough to know how it all goes down, so I'll keep every bit of insanity throughout this brief. After the entrances and pre-match promo, the bell rings and Jarrett immediately lays down in the ring. As Russo throws the belt into the ring before leaving, Hogan then tells Vinny Roo how he feels about all of this.
What a return!
Is this your deal, Russo?
Wow.
That's why this company's in the damn shape it's in, because of bullshit like this.
Before pinning Jarrett to win back the world title as Double J quickly heads to the back. All of this being the final night of Hulk Hogan in World Championship Wrestling. Russo comes back out later to bury Hulk Hogan in a promo, before announcing Jeff Jarrett will now face Booker T for the WCW Championship in the main event. Even after competing earlier in the night, and Jarrett attempting to use every underhanded tactic to stop him, Booker hits the bookend to win the first of his 5 WCW World Championships. Despite the chaos that led to this matchup happening, the fans in the arena raise the roof for Book, as the pay-per-view ends on a high note. Goldberg confronts Booker a couple of weeks later on Nitro, holding to the former G.I. Bros promise of defending the belt every Monday, before saying that there isn't anything that he can do about it, as Book is more than happy to give him that title shot. After Bill sends Stevie Ray through a plate glass window earlier in the night, the other half of Harlem Heat looks to get revenge before the bell rings as the two brawl at ringside. Goldberg uses his power to stop Booker from building momentum for the first minute or two, before Jarrett comes running down to hit Goldberg with a chair, but gets speared in retaliation. The Cat runs in to knock him down, but Bill returns the favor. Booker is then able to get back up and hit the bookend to retain the title, but eats a spear and jackhammer immediately afterwards. We then go to the build-up for the three-way dance between Goldberg, Scott Steiner, and Kevin Nash at New Blood Rising. Oh joy. After Bill finally makes his way to the ring mid-match, him and Big Sexy trade some back and forths in the corner before Steiner tries to get the win. Goldberg then targets Big Papa Pump, with both men getting knocked down by Nash. But as he sets up Bill for the jackknife, Goldberg goes off script and heads to the back, stopping briefly to yell at Vince Russo as Steiner and Nash continue on with the match. Medeja interferes when the referee gets knocked down, but isn't able to stop Kevin from hitting the jackknife and earning himself a world title match at the Fall Brawl pay-per-view. But Nash wouldn't have to wait long to get the big gold belt back. 2 weeks later on Nitro, Kev would get his match against Booker, with Double J serving as the official. Despite teasing that Jarrett had issues with Russo, Nash, and Steiner, his guitar shot to Booker helped Nash get the pin and become the WCW World Champion. As the DVD comes to an end, we go to a commercial hyping up Scott Steiner and Goldberg's match at the Fall Brawl pay-per-view, before going to a montage of clips while the credits roll. I'm thankful they chose to end the highlights here, because my sanity would have been completely gone if I had to go into detail of how Russo eventually booked himself to win the title. So before I get into my final thoughts on everything, I wanted to give a major thanks to Blastmaster, a user on the BitChute website, for being able to upload the DVD in full and helping to preserve a rare but very cool piece of WCW history. And while it does a great job highlighting the 4 months of the Millionaires Club vs. New Blood storyline, having watched this in full, I think it's understandable why a lot of the programming during this period of WCW wasn't for everyone, myself included. Constant interference, hot potato booking with the World Heavyweight title, and some of the more over-the-top presentation, intentional or botched, are a few aspects of the New Blood era in WCW that are certainly far from what fans who had watched Nitro years prior would associate with. And if I felt somewhat mentally drained from watching certain matches and segments, Lord knows how I would have felt watching these shows week to week. That being said, it is still important to acknowledge that this content was used to help put together the one and only DVD that was officially released by WCW before the doors shut down. And for archival's sake, I'm glad that the original airings of these shows were preserved in the best quality for over a decade. While the physical disc itself may be hard to find, knowing that the Millionaires Club New Blood DVD is out there makes it a piece of wrestling content that thankfully won't be lost to time. Or in the middle of another botched bloodbath,